Welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, a program presented by the Wadsworth Area Historical Society and designed to record the oral history of Wadsworth for posterity. I'm your host, Cesar Carino, and our guest today for our second time is Carl Dudley. Carl, you can't imagine the numbers of people who called after your first one to ask if you would come back again to talk about some of the other intimacies of Wadsworth, and so we had you come back, and I'm so grateful to you for agreeing to do that. Before we start, you have to tell us the one thing we could not remember the last time, and that was Nipper's first name. Nip, the person from the A&P. What was his first name?
Compliments of Don Boyer.
Compliments of Don Boyer.
His name is Lamar.
Lamar. I knew that. You knew that. We would just never called him anything but Nip.
That's right.
And what about the? You had told us about the Wright's department store, and I told you that I thought it was Sam and Julia Diamond, but there was another person following them, and that was whom?
Mr. Andreas, A-N-D-R-E-A-S, I believe.
A-N-D-R-E-A-S, Andreas, right? And they had the Wright's department store
Right.
at that. One of the things we want to do today with, and we're going to have a quick review of your life and so forth, because if people didn't see you the first time, they have an opportunity to hear a little bit about you this time. Tell us a little bit about, where you were born, where you were born, your family, your children, and so forth, just somewhat quickly.
First, I was kind of nervous last week, and I have one or two corrections to make.
Oh, what are they?
Number one, I think I gave you the wrong answer. You asked me about a Watts part. And the question wasn't real clear to me, and I said Pilot Fork. But I think the answer you wanted was Mainspring, I believe, but that doesn't matter. Secondly, I said my daughter Mary was the head of the department at Kent State, the night education. Well, I have to demote Mary. She surely was not head of the department. She only worked there. I don't know why I said that. It isn't true. And number three, I should have also mentioned my daughter Nancy, who lives in Wadsworth, is a teacher's aide at Franklin. So we get that plug in for Franklin School.
We got, well, absolutely. And don't worry about mistakes, we can correct those. I had one person who wrote me 4 pages of errors that she had committed on them, but they were tiny ones, for instance, she had said something about the fact that her neighbor's name was Ellen and her name was really Elaine or something like that. Sure. But that's fine. This, as you know, Carl, this is not a finished program. All we're doing is collecting data for the person who writes this. So don't worry about mistakes. We can correct those at any time. And most of the people who call are telling us, for instance, we had forgotten that I had mispronounced the name of one of the girls. I'm trying to think who it was right now. I think it was, I know who it was. It was, I said Mary Ellen Harper. It was Mary Alice Harper.
Sure.
Yeah, so just little things like that. And we're pleased to get those kinds of corrections. And every night I get someone calling about, whatever's on the program. And that's fine. We want it that way so that we can make those corrections. One of the things that we didn't really get a really good chance of doing we still haven't told about your life. So tell us a little bit more about your life and where you were born, when you were born, and so forth, and your wife and all of that.
I was born in 1926 down in Appalachia. That was kind of the middle of the Depression. Depression was still on the coming out. And of course, there wasn't much to do, and if there was, we didn't have any money. But as many of my boyfriends and I, we hunted, trapped, worked, played baseball, and went to church. And that was
it.
Basically, that was it.
That was it.
And that's nothing wrong with that at all.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, it produced some pretty good people, of whom one is Carl Dudley. And then you came to Wadsworth, and you fell in love with Wadsworth, and you worked for Stonier's Jewelry Store. As a matter of fact, you owned it at one time. Is that right?
Sure.
And Marion Stonier, and you were still very close friends. And
a great lady.
If Marion is able to come on the program, we're still going to get her. She's over 100 years old now. It's fine memory. We'd like to have her on the program. You learned horology, is that right?
Yes.
And you learned
stones, whatever.
What is the name of the science of learning stones? Is that gemology?
Yes. Sure.
Horology for watches and
right.
gemology. Now, A lot has changed in terms of horology. What is the biggest change that you saw come down the pike?
Probably the biggest change perhaps is throwaways. It used to be there was a lot of watches to be repaired, especially pocket watches, even when I was coming into it. Then it became all wristwatches, and then in the last few years it was quartz watches, and good quartz watches and inexpensive quartz watches, which are throwaways. And
What makes a quartz watch so accurate?
well, it's the chip they have in it actually, and it's within, you might say, seconds a year. And the cheap ones, actually inexpensive ones, are just as accurate, you might say.
Is that right?
Just about as expensive. But they don't have as nice a case or anything. But, you know, unfortunately, or fortunately, I should say, you can get a nice one for, not a nice one, you can get a good timepiece for $9.95 today, $9.95.
And it'll keep good time.
Definitely. So it, of course, I was over the hill anyway, but it has taken away a lot of watch repair work. But there's, it's a good thing it did maybe, because there are no watch repairmen anymore anyway that actually does it to speak of, you know.
You know, I read somewhere, and I don't know if this is true, that the two industries that are losing people faster than anything else are watch repair people and male barbers.
I would imagine that's true, because my barber tells me, I said, well, there's not as many barbers in Wadsworth as there used to be in bigger population. But he says, you know, they go to the beauty shops and places to have their hair done.
Well, that's where I always go to make sure that
Sure.
all of my hair, obviously I'm joking, I do not go to a beauty shop. I don't have any hair to except a little bit around here to cut. Carl, list some of the people who were in the immediate area of Stonier's Jewelry, and then tell us about their personalities. That's one of the things that we're a little bit missing, and you know about these personalities. Let's just start with the personalities of the people in your store, and who worked there, and what were their personalities like.
Well, of course, as you know, when you start naming people,
You're going to forget someone.
but the first person I would name would be Kathy McCannum.
Kathy McCammon?
Yes.
And who was she?
Well, I don't think she was a Wadsworth native, but
Did she marry a Wadsworth boy?
Bud. She married Bud.
Bud McCammon.
She worked for me like 14 or 15 years, sometimes full time.
And Bud McCammon has a bowling,
Refinishing
bowling alleys or whatever.
And Kathy is just a wonderful person, inside the store and outside the store. A great person.
Yes, she is. And Catherine McCammon lived on Durning Drive.
That's true.
Right. Mhm.
And she worked for me.
The McCammons lived on Silver Creek, well, Silver Crest Road right now. There were about 9 kids in the family, 2 or 3 girls, and the rest were all boys, and a couple of them are gone. But they were a good, great family. And Catherine worked for you. And what did she do?
Well, clerk, I guess you would say. That's about what everyone was who worked for me, actually.
And what were some of the traits that made her a great person?
Her consistent, nice personality, not highs and lows, and a very good worker, and of course, very truthful and very honest, and just a nice person.
Good, nice person. Okay, now, Catherine, that's what we'd like to hear about these people. Who are some of the other people who worked in the area?
In the stores or just in the stores?
Well, in stores or anywhere at all, but particularly in the stores.
Okay, well, at one time, Tom Baldwin had a film station about 3 doors down from me.
Now, there are 2 Tom Baldwins. Identify which Tom Baldwin we're talking about.
This would be Homer's brother.
Homer's brother, Tom Baldwin, who was approximately 68 years old now, as compared to his nephew, Tom Baldwin, who was probably 35 years old or 36 or something.
And Tom Baldwin, our Tom Baldwin, is a trustee now at Wadsworth Township.
Wadsworth Township trustee. That's that Tom Baldwin. They're the same family. They have the same names, but they are not the same person.
Uncle and nephew, I believe.
Uncle and nephew. That is correct. And I'd like to get Tom on the program. He won't come, but Tom's an outstanding person. He has contributed so much to Wadsworth. His whole family has contributed so much to Wadsworth, and I think that I probably have mentioned this before, but it's very difficult for me to get people on the program. I probably spend 10 times more time getting people on the program than interviewing them. So you were hard to get, but I'm so glad that we were able to get you too. Tell us a little bit about Tom Baldwin. Tom won't tell us about himself, so you tell us a little bit about Tom Baldwin.
Very personable, as you know, Tom
Extremely.
is. And
Right, very, very intelligent.
very smart, very intelligent, and
Honest as the day is
worker.
long.
He ran a nice business there
Oh,
on
you
the
bet.
corner, and just very congenial, very nice guy.
Very good person. Okay, then how about on the other side of Sonia's jewelry?
Well, originally it was Cleo Wolf.
Tell us about Cleo Wolf. Everyone knows Cleo, but no one really knows him that closely because
I can understand that. He was kind of introvert, maybe.
a
And,
nice, great
very
person.
nice, and probably didn't want everybody knowing his business, or who does, you know. But very nice. And
And who was his wife?
Irene.
Irene
I
Wolf.
think she was a Lang? And I think she passed away not too long
Yes, she
ago.
did.
And Cleo was in World War II, as I was, you know, and he was running a good business there. But then I think maybe competition became strong for the new shopping centers, and he was getting to age that he retired in a way.
And did he have a brother who was a jeweler?
No, Forrest Wolf.
Forrest Wolf.
It'd be his cousin.
Oh, his cousin, okay.
Forrest Wolf, speaking about that, I remember, you know, Mark Nielsen.
Yes, Mark Nielsen.
He was on the corner there where the shoe store is now.
On the corner of, we have to do this geographically, on the corner of Broad and Main.
The southeast corner.
Southeast corner of Broad and Main, right. Mark
Also,
Nielsen was born in Sweden or Norway?
one of the two.
I think Sweden.
But he was on a corner. Yes, and Ladrak shoe store was in the same building south of him. Ben Ladrak.
Ben Ladrak and his wife.
Right.
Two good people.
No children. Yeah.
No children.
Yeah.
Now, Mark Nielsen had a son,
George.
George Nielsen.
I saw George when Mark passed away, or maybe when Mark's wife passed away the last time I saw him. He was a professor up in Wisconsin at that time.
Oh, bright, brighter than
I
all get
understand,
out.
yeah.
He would be about 65 years old now.
Perhaps. He was out of high school when I came or anything, but I only met him through his dad sometimes. And Mark was a fine man. And as he got older, I always went on a Wednesday as a rule to Cleveland or Akron to pick up supplies and parts. And as Mark got older, I always did it for him.
There was the competition was a good competition.
Definitely.
And nothing that was ever cut through.
Not a bit.
Tell us a little bit about Mark Nielsen and a little bit about his personality.
Well, Mark was just a straightforward guy, and you could just depend on him. Like you say, he was not cutthroat. We were good friends. We went to the same church, and
And which church was that?
First Christian.
First Christian Church.
And when they mentioned that, if this is not a line, I just want to mention Phil Gould.
Oh, yes.
Because
That's
if he was-
not only is it not out of line, we need to hear about him.
If he was living, I know you would have him on this
You
program.
bet I would.
I
Good
want to
friend.
mention him and John Miller, both, because you knew both of them.
Surely.
And they were both from the Pittsburgh area. And I went to school in Pittsburgh, and at least once, they were great Pittsburgh Pirates baseball fans.
Oh, well, but you won't hold that against them.
No, but anyway, once a year, at least once a year, I would take those two back to Pittsburgh to a baseball game. And we would spend about 2 days and have a nice time. And quite often, Charlie Ackerman
Oh, yes, Charlie, the newspaper editor.
and Bob Schultz would go with us. And
Bob Schultz, too.
we just
Bob was a
accountant.
accountant.
We just had a great time. And I say they were two gentlemen that you would have on here if they were living.
Oh, you bet.
And Phil Gould was here for like 35 years, you know.
He was a pastor of the First Christian Church.
Right.
Lived in
North Pardee.
North Pardee.
But they built a home out on Hillsdale Circle.
Hillsdale Circle. That's one I was trying to think of.
Gertrude still lives out there.
Does she? Mhm.
Yes. She's like, but Gertrude, shouldn't say that. She's, 80, 81 now. But Phil was my pastor when I first came to town. And everybody, says nobody can be replaced, as you and I know. And they said that when Phil retired, And I don't think he intends to replace him, but Jim Singleton is surely a worthy successor to Phil.
Oh, surely is. And so was Pastor Martha Everhart.
Oh, of course, yes.
We had her on the program here.
Did Martha, yes, she.
Martha and Dick are the only dentist pastor team in the state of Ohio and probably in the United States.
They are both proud grandparents of a new grandson.
Oh, is that right?
Nancy has a new baby boy.
And Nancy is an actress.
Right,
And appears on the screen
yeah.
and on television and programs. It's hard to believe that this little girl that grew up in Wadsworth is someone we watch on television.
That's true, and a quiet little girl.
And I think that one of the comments that Martha made on the program is one that I just cherish. Since she's a minister, people go up to her and say, well, now, Pastor, just how do you feel when you see your daughter jumping in bed with such and such? I said, jealous.
Yeah, yeah.
She's a great person, a great person. They were wonderful people. Mark Nielsen was the old-time jeweler, is that correct?
True.
Tell us a little bit about the old-time jewelers. What did they have to do?
Well, the old-time jewelers, there's a term that isn't used directly, and that is watchmakers. I was never a watchmaker, and I don't know personally one who is. There are probably people in Switzerland who could sit down and make a watch from scratch, but I can't, and Mark couldn't either, to be honest about it, and nobody around here could. But he was a great repairman, and in his young...
Where would he have learned his trade? Mark would be close to about, what, 100 years old now, wouldn't he?
Oh, he definitely would. He had it before he came over here. He learned it probably in
Sweden?
Sweden or Norway, wherever. Sweden,
I think it's Sweden.
I think so, yeah.
Had a little bit of an accent.
Yes, he did.
But he spoke very well.
Oh, yes, very.
But just a little bit of an accent. Everyone loved
And his
him.
wife was from Georgia.
Yes.
Jimmy was her name.
Jimmy,
She was from Georgia.
a completely different person from
Yes,
Mark.
right.
A completely different person. Now, we went 2 or 3 blocks there without going in the middle. Go around the corner from Wolfson right behind there and Smith Dairy. You had to go to Smith Dairy.
Yes, I mentioned our shop last time I was here, and Janet Fulton worked there. I would go back there at noon.
Janet Fulton's maiden name was, it'll come to me, Janet, I'll think of it. I know her very well.
She worked back there, and I'd go back there at noon, and they had terrific soup or sandwiches or a hot fudge sundae, and stuff like that.
The hot fudge sundaes. And did you remember Hattie Yoder, who worked in there?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Hattie Yoder. What a sweet person she was.
A very sweet person. I can't tell you a lot about her. I didn't know her that well, but she was a very sweet.
And one of the shoe girls worked there too.
That would be Ethel.
Ethel Shoe.
Virginia worked at that time the First National Bank.
Right, Virginia Shoe. There were several Shoe children, about 8 or 10 of them.
And Ethel became a practical nurse then after that. Yeah, one of the boys had a shoe shop over there, if you remember, on the south east corner, just north of the Central High School.
Yes, that was...
James?
No, that wasn't Jim. It was
Harry
Shoe.
Harry
Shoe,
okay.
right.
And that's right. And then I think we mentioned last time, Mrs. Brown was manager of that Smith Dairy for quite a while.
Janet Blau.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Let's see, would Tex be her uncle? Do you remember Tex?
Oh yeah, surely. I think that they're related.
Yeah. In fact, she's told me that some of her Blaus raised her. It wasn't her parents. I don't know who raised Janet.
Janet Blau. I couldn't think of it. I knew it. Just one of those senior moments we all have.
Yeah, that's right.
The Smith Dairy, known for milk, of course, and ice cream and so forth, but they did have a little kitchen there.
Yes, it did.
And a lot of people would go there.
At noon, especially.
At noon, oh yeah, it was a good place to go, and it had a nice little restaurant there. Those things are gone now, and the women would cook, and I don't know if they had any men cooking, but not that men can't cook, but they did some cooking in there. One of their customers, I can remember this in 1945, one of their customers would go there with a Model T Ford that looked like just come out of the showroom. and he went in to get something, and I don't know what he went to get, say for instance milk or whatever, and he had an old newspaper, a piece of newspaper. The trunk lid was nothing more than a just didn't have the fancy lids that we have now on trunks.
Sure.
Just a little door, and he put the newspaper on the door so that when it went up against the cab of the Model T Ford, it wouldn't scratch it. That's why he kept it so. This is 1948, and this had to be a 1924, 25. So it's 20 years old or something, 20, 25 years old.
We're jumping something, but we should before we forget this. When I came to town in '54, the Chevy dealership was where the Wadsworth Park store is
Right,
now.
Hayes Arnold.
Yes, Hayes Arnold, and the Ford dealership was where Sherwin-Williams is.
That's
Can
right.
you imagine having car dealerships in those small places?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. They would have a showroom with only one car in it.
That's right.
And they barely could get that. As a matter of fact, I don't think that the Ford dealership had a showroom, did they?
I don't think they did either.
They just had that little building.
In 1955, Jack Summer bought the dealership then from
Yes.
Lawrence Hayes is the one that owned it.
Lauren Hayes, right.
And Jack Summer bought it. In 1955, I bought a nice new Chevy from him. It was $2,265. And I had the 51 Plymouth, and he gave me $900 for it, so I got it for $1,300.
Oh boy, you can't buy a wheel for that now. Lauren Hayes then went to that little gas station south of the old Methodist church, where the school now has the property. The central school has the property. He had a little bit of a gas station there for a little while. Then he left that,
Yeah.
and he went elsewhere. Down the road from Smith Dairy were houses.
Well, Close Food Locker, as we mentioned, was there.
Right, close
But
food locker.
then houses.
Yeah, then houses. And who was at the close food locker that
Don Close.
Don Close. And tell us a little bit about Don Close.
Well, he was, as I said before, a philosopher. Very nice man, but just very nice. He was a philosopher, though, and I think I mentioned he said he would give what remaining few years he had on Earth if he could come back in 100 years. Of course, we don't make deals like that. God takes care of that. But anyway, I told him, Don, I don't think you could handle it if you come back in 100 years. I don't think I could. It'd be an entirely different world.
It surely would be.
But he wanted to do that.
People who come back to Wadsworth after they've been gone for 50 years find it to be a different world, much less a lifetime. Then across the street, we had the news banner.
Yes.
And who was over there, and what were their personalities? What were their personalities like?
Well, I've always admired John Miller, as I said before. And who ran the print shop in the back?
One of the Bells.
Ed Bell.
Ed Bell.
His wife Martha bypassed, used to work for me too. She's deceased now.
Who's that?
Martha Bell.
Martha Bell.
She was from Richmond. I can't tell you her maiden name.
Martha Bell, and then we had Ed Bell back there, Tony Milici,
Yes.
and I can picture his apron, picture his face, but I can't say his name right this very second. And then they had a little other print shop back there. Bruce Brickle was back there.
Yes, he was when I
They
came
had a
to
little
town.
print shop back there. And who were some of the other people that you remember in the news banner? Susan Morrison, of
Oh,
course.
Sue. Yes, she was.
Red
Red Smith.
Smith.
I think he was part owner before John sold it to the Sun newspapers. Red passed away about a year ago with cancer,
Right.
Red had a stellar war record. A lot of people don't know about this, but he commanded a Japanese regiment which was sent to Europe. They didn't want them to fight in the Pacific, of course, because of the Japanese. But Red commanded that Japanese unit in Europe, and they had many medals. Great war stories there.
Is that right? Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
I really couldn't. Red never elaborated on it too much, but I picked it out from time to time.
Quentin, the other fellow back there, Quentin, we'll hear about it tonight.
Okay.
Quentin, I can't think of his other name. And what about some of the other people in the front office of the personalities? So you know these people because you were in town all these years.
I was back about every day, I guess. But John was a great sports fan, and I was too, and we talked. And his retirement idea was to go around every courthouse in the state of Ohio, every county, court, 88 counties, you know. And I don't think he ever got that quite finished.
Well, we have one person in Wadsworth who did,
Who?
Norman Bragg.
Norman? Great friend
He's
of
gone
mine.
to every single courthouse in the state of Ohio.
I didn't know he had.
Yep.
Yeah.
And everywhere he goes to the courthouse.
Yeah.
And he has something about the courthouses there.
Norman's mother and my aunt went to normal school together, if you know what you know
Yes,
what
normal school was a teaching school.
Yes.
People who got out of high school and would go there for approximately 2 years,
Right.
and then they get a teaching certificate and
Right.
then would go. In 1945 or so, 1943, 44, the state required then that all normal certificates had to be upgraded unless they had a life certificate.
Yeah.
And if they had a life certificate, they did not have to upgrade them. Then going up to the corner of Wautroosa and College Street. Who was there? Was that the Firestone store at that time?
Oh, that corner, yes. It was when I came to town. Old timers will tell you there was a movie theater there. But
Oh, yes, and I'm one of the old timers who will tell you that the
Well,
Star Theater was
not
the
old-timers.
Sites, S-C-I-T-Z Theater.
people before I came to town, I
Right.
should say, not old timers.
And who were the people at the, in the Firestone store?
Well, there's Roy Knapp
And his uncle,
and Vern,
Vern is his uncle,
Jim Leadham was in
Jim
there.
Leadham.
And they were all, then they also had a toy store 2 doors south of me.
And who's in charge of that?
I think they just did that, took different turns down there as far as I know.
You say 2 doors south of you or west of you?
West, I'm sorry.
Yeah, west, yeah.
Right.
Right, they'll be west
Right.
toward the cemetery. And then we go to the next door, which of course was a barber shop now, but what was it at that time? It was a
It
restaurant.
was a bakery.
Bakery. Well, whose bakery was it?
That was Coon's Bakery.
Koon, K-O-O-N. We had K-O-O-L-E, Cool's Bakery, and K-O-O-N. Now tell us a little bit about the Coons and who are they and where they are, or where are they now?
Well, Mr. Coon was a great guy and a great baker, and he would go in there at 3 or 4 in the morning, or maybe earlier, to get his day's baking done. And of course, his daughter is Lucille, married to Bob Schaefer.
Right, Virginia.
Yes, Virginia. I think she lives. I think her name is Dodge. I'm not sure.
No, Virginia married
Oh.
Bob Schaefer. Virginia Coon married Bob Schaefer.
Might be. I thought it was Lucille. I thought, okay, but you're right.
I think it is. But,
Okay, okay.
We'll find
No,
out.
that's fine.
Bob will call us tonight.
Okay, that's anyway. She worked in that bakery.
Redheaded girl.
Yes, she was.
And Bob worked at the Firestone
That's
store.
right.
And he used to go over there for little snacks.
Yes.
And married the person who would
Who we're
sell these little snacks to him.
My wife liked bakery goods, and she and whatever her name is, Virginia, used to joke around. She liked jewelry, and my wife liked the baked goods, and they always said they was going to change jobs there, you know.
Oh, you might be right, and I might be right. I think that they call her Lou, but her name is Virginia.
That's very possible.
That's right,
I
yeah.
never knew that sort of thing. Then she had a sister, too.
Yes, and had a brother. And her brother was a teacher at Norton.
She had 2 brothers. Sonny, I think he lives in Pittsburgh, and the one that taught at Norton is passed away.
Yes, he passed away.
In the West, in Seattle or someplace like that. That's
He
true.
was a very sharp person. I remember him very, very
Yes.
well, very sharp, very affable.
Yes, he
Well, the
was.
whole family, just very affable people. Then next door was what?
Next door to the bakery was different things there. Oh, next door. Well, which side was Kleckner's restaurant on?
Right next door to the east.
Yes, okay. Kleckner's restaurant is there.
And tell us a little bit about Bill Kleckner.
Bill Kleckner was a very outgoing person and a good owner of a restaurant. Made people feel good at home.
Oh yeah, well he had a tremendous personality.
A real extrovert.
Bill was born probably in 1921 or so,
I don't know.
and he at 1939 he drove the delivery truck for Overhaul and Freeborn. It was
Okay.
one of his jobs right after he got out of high school. And he had a restaurant there.
Yes, he did.
And unfortunately, he died early, did he
Yes, he
not? He had
did.
a heart condition. See that?
That's where the law office is now.
The law offices are right now, they're, as we know them, Luck
Yes.
Luck and somebody else, right?
That's
Then what's next?
I'm not sure at that time,
A&P, wasn't it?
well, not yet. Was there a laundromat next to,
No, the laundromat came after the A&P.
is that in the same building? Okay, A&P and Kroger's were next.
A&P was the one, then Kroger's was the
Okay.
more narrow one.
Yes,
Now then, Lamar Nipper.
that's right.
Tell us a little bit about Lamar Nipper, whom we called Nip, and we couldn't think of his name.
Very outgoing person and very friendly and always moving in that store. He was working all the time.
Describe him personally. I mean, his
He was almost stocky, not very tall.
and no hair, very little
No
hair.
And stocky, I'd say, and short.
And when you say he moved all the time, I mean, he was everywhere in that store.
Yes, he was.
Who was the butcher?
Opplinger?
Yes.
Opplinger.
Don Opplinger.
Yeah.
I think people would stand in line to get Don Opplinger just because they liked Don Opplinger. They didn't
I
care
think
about the
so.
meat, but I mean, the meat was good, but they would stand there because they liked Don Opplinger. Who were some of the other people who worked in the store?
The one lady I remember was Mrs. Miller, because her daughter Norma was my daughter's friend.
Oh, is that right? Mhm.
Yeah, and that's the only one I remember. There's another lady I know very well. I could see her. I can't come up with her name.
I can't picture who
It's
that would be.
because she worked after they moved up to the bigger store at the strip mall there. Both of the ladies worked there at that time.
See, the A&P moved from there and then went up to, do it geographically, what would be Boyer and High Street, right? On the northwest corner of Boyer and High Street.
Right.
And then, of course, that changed into be a Young Fellows or something like that, but that was the A&P at
It
one
was.
time. Kroger's. Whom do you remember in Kroger's?
You know, I don't remember anybody in Kroger's.
They were not here very, very long, and they had a small store, and it was not really a thriving business, and then they left. And then after that, a saloon went in there,
Yeah, Circus Bar.
Circus Bar. Do you remember who owned it first?
No, I don't.
I think Ed Eiselhart might have owned it first.
Did Ed own that? Okay, okay.
I think so. I think that he might have owned that first. I'm not positive, but I think
Okay.
that was true. Then we go to the bank.
Well, not yet.
What's next?
Where the bank drive-in is, you
Oh,
know,
yeah, where the bank drive-in. You're right. What was there?
John Long.
That's right. John Long, wallpaper and carpeting and so forth. That's right. Your memory is excellent. Excellent. I'd forgotten about John Long. John Long's daughter still lives in town. That's Mary Griner, Mary Long Griner. And I wanted to get her on the program. She won't come. They have such a long history, tremendously long history. I mean, that's not a play on words, long history. I don't mean that. But I'd love to have Mary come on and tell us about it because just a fascinating.
I didn't know that was his daughter,
Yes, Mary Griner.
because I've worked with her at the hospital sometimes.
Who were some of the people who worked in Long's? Rose Gordon worked there.
Rose. And I don't know who else. I don't actually know if I was ever in there for anything.
Describe John Long to us a little bit.
I'm not sure to do that either. No, he was
Robust,
a real big guy, if I remember
robust, not too much hair.
right. If I remember right.
Always wore a hat,
I don't
and
remember.
tremendously good craftsman.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Very, very
I
good
don't think I ever bought anything there, truthfully.
Then he moved his store from there all the way up to almost where the 76 and 94 are right now.
Yeah,
He moved that store.
Right, that's right.
And then they tore it down and they made the drive-in for the bank.
that's right.
The bank. Tell us some people in the bank.
Well, I have to mention 3 people because I owe all of them quite a bit.
We hope not money, though.
No, I did it one time.
You did it one time.
Yes. Tom Sailors,
Tom Sailors,
Kenny Giffen,
Kenny Giffen,
Sterling Sechrist.
Stevenson. Only one is living,
Right.
Sterling Sechrist.
When I went to buy the store, I had just bought a home and had it paid for, but I didn't have any money. And they told me to buy the store. The 3 of them told me this. They said, you buy the store, said, we trust you to make the deal that you know is good. And they said, They pointed, said, we got a lot of money out there in this bank. Said, you can have anything you want. And I haven't forgotten that.
And you made good on it.
Yes, I sure
You
did.
made good on it. There's no question there. Sterling Seacrest is now 80 years of age.
He will
Kenny
be.
Giffen is dead,
That's true.
and Tom Saylor is dead.
Yes.
They were great people. Kenny Giffen was also a teacher at the high school, taught speech, mathematics, very, very fine person.
And he was council president and mayor for a short time.
Yes, he was acting mayor for a short time.
That's right.
And what about Tom Saylor? Tell us a little bit about Tom Saylor, the typical banker, stereotypical banker.
Indeed he was.
Stately
Indeed he was. And I think about him many times. And when you know what I'm talking about, I think he might turn over in his grave if he knew some current things that are happening.
Oh, yes.
That did happen, you know what I mean.
You know how very professional bankers always were.
That's right.
I told this story once before, but I think it bears repeating. My mother-in-law had a stroke, so we take care of her finances and all of everything. She still has a very keen mind, but she can't get around too well. She lives in Brunswick, and the bank is not next door, but within 1,000 feet from her house. And she had asked me to go to the bank to do some to commit some transactions there. So, knowing fully well that I was not known in Brunswick, she called ahead. She said, now my son-in-law is going to come. Now his name is, and he looks like this, and my bank account number is this, and he will have a note from me, and so forth and so on. And she said, would you tell me please who your name is? And so he will come to you, and you will know who it is. My name is whatever her name was. I went in the bank. Here's this girl standing behind the counter, and she was flipping her pencil up and down and so forth. And I went up to her, and I saw her name. Let's say it's Alice. I don't know what particular. I said, are you Alice? Yeah. I said, I am, and I told her the whole thing. And I said, here's my mother-in-law's account number, and I'm so forth and so on. She said, whatever.
Yeah, I believe that.
Now, can you imagine Tom Saylor, Sterling Seacrest, or Kenny Giffen ever putting up with anything like that?
Before we go past, we're forgetting a name there too, Mr. Kreider.
Oh, yes, right. Now, this is not the same bank, though.
No. Pardon me?
Not the same bank, though.
Yes.
Which Kreider?
His name might have been Leonard. It's been a long time ago. He was a teller there for years.
Oh, you're not talking about Dave Kreider, who was the president of the other bank, the First National, are you?
You know, I don't think Kreider's the name I want. It's who else worked in that bank?
Well, they had Josefino Sepik.
No, this is a man.
Oh, a man, okay.
He lived on College Street. He was Goshen, Indiana, Mennonite, you know.
Well, that would be a Kreider then.
Was that Kreider?
Yeah.
I can't come up with his first name then. He was a tall, thin man.
Yeah.
You don't remember him?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Was that Kreider?
I think it was, yes.
I
think
thought it
Leonard
was.
was right. Is true. See, there's Dave Kreider, who worked at the bank, at the First National Bank, and then Dwayne Kreider, who worked at the First National Bank also,
Yeah.
but they are not the same person.
I seemed like this guy's name was it Leonard Kreider?
I'm almost, that rings the bell with me,
Okay,
yes.
doesn't matter. But
And then they had Mrs. Creekbaum, who worked there as well.
yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, but wasn't she remarried? Was that her name when she worked there?
Mrs. Creekbaum, did she marry, she was a Gaston first.
Okay. Okay, that's. I'm thinking her name is Gaston's the name I was thinking of.
Yeah, but then she was Mrs. Creekbaum.
After that, okay.
Right. Verna.
Yeah, right.
Verna, right.
Yeah.
And then let's go one door south from the.
Well,
We're not going to get around the city unless we.
okay. Was Dick Curtis one door south or two door?
One door south was Dick Curtis.
Okay.
Right.
Had a nice men's store. I used to buy a lot of
yes.
clothes there.
And he had a Weinsheimer, Wines the tailor, whose daughter is Bill Heil's wife,
Right.
Mary.
And then after that, John, the German man, came over and took his place as a tailor.
Who was it?
Roger Smith, I believe his name is.
Roger Schmidt was a tailor.
He came there.
No, I don't remember him.
Okay, he came there. I believe he was in Germany. He was German. I think he was working in a PX and tailoring men's GI's clothes, you
Oh,
know.
really?
And somebody from Wadsworth got to know him, and they knew Curtis was going to need
Do you
somebody.
know who it was in Wadsworth who brought him over here?
No, I don't. And well, he died a few years ago, John did. I'm surprised you don't remember him.
No, I don't remember him.
Okay.
I'm
I
going to
think
have
his
to,
name was Ryder Smith.
what was his first name?
John.
What?
John.
John Rogers. Oh, now John, yes.
Okay.
But I didn't realize that was his last name.
Well, I wouldn't swear to that. It seems like it was.
Yes, I remember John.
Okay, yeah, he
Okay.
came there.
I didn't remember the last name. Of course,
Yeah.
we had Dick Curtis on the program,
Good.
and he was just absolutely outstanding.
I bet.
And he will know who, and from Wadsworth recognize that. I would like to have, that's a nice little tidbit that we could have. Then we go one store south from there.
Was it 5 and 10? No.
No,
The
no.
Rexall store.
Rexall Drugstore, right?
Sure.
Owned by
Mr. Richmond.
Mr. Ritzman.
There was a robust, outgoing guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they had a little soup counter there, if you
That's right.
you remember. I get the soup there. And, yeah, of course, he has, I don't know how many boys that are in the drug business.
Well, they're all in the pharmaceutical
I
business,
don't know how
right?
many there are.
Earl is dead, unfortunately.
is.
He died at a very early age, at 50
Right.
or so, and or maybe even before that, I'm not positive. He has a wife, Diane, Ethelyn actually is her real name, who lived in Wadsworth for a while, then she moved back to Norton, and then they had a daughter who had the Hanson's Deli, and I think that she sold that now.
She did. I was talking to her when she was still up there.
That would be Earl's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be Dad's name, Ritzman's, the one, the
Yeah. I can't
not
tell
Ed,
his name.
anyway, his
Yeah,
granddaughter.
right.
I know it, can't think of it right now. Then south,
Was the Ben Franklin next?
no, not yet, shoe store.
Oh, the shoe repair shop.
Yes.
Central Shoe Repair.
Yep, and I want to get him in here too. He's here for 50 years.
Yes.
And I've been trying for over a year to get him to come in and tell us about all the shoes that he has
Oh,
done.
my gosh.
And he then kind of gave the store up, gave it to his son, and his son died at age 40.
That's
and
true.
that was Vince Vogus, V-O-G-U-S.
Mm-hmm.
And just such a sad thing. And he has 2 daughters and this one son. And his daughter, Amy, lives in Wadsworth.
She was
And-
also my daughter's best friend.
Is that right?
Amy.
Amy's a sweetheart. She worked at the university. And then they have another daughter who was a nurse here in town, and then she has since moved away.
Yeah.
And then now we can come down to not the old bank, of course, was the First National Bank, and who was in there? Dave Kreider,
Dave Kreider and
And
Bill Kane.
Bill Kane, and some of the
Bill Reimer, of course.
Bill Reimer, right, and Dwayne Kreider,
Kreider.
and Ethel Geisinger,
Right.
and let's see who else. Tell us a little bit about Bill Kane.
Oh, Bill. he was an attorney, you know, but he didn't practice by that. I mean, he didn't take it too seriously.
Where did he live?
Well, when I knew him, he lived up there on Far Avenue with that big house.
What describe that house, and then to whom did he sell it?
Well, that house, I was up there a time or two. It had an elevator in it.
At an elevator, right?
Big house, and I don't know how many acres. Grown with
7.
that. 7 acres, okay.
7 acres.
And,
And Dr. Joe Masrick bought that. Of course,
Right.
he's gone now too.
right. Yeah, Bill was, he wasn't, he was a good banker, but he wasn't as serious as some bankers.
No, but everyone loved him.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, they all
Of
loved
course, he
him.
moved to California, you know, and died maybe 2 years ago or something.
Yeah, he's gone too. So all of these people that we're talking about here are gone.
That's right.
Now Ben Franklin.
That was next. Ed Elsis had it when
Ed
I
Elsis,
came to
right.
town. A fine man. And he had son Bill, who was in the insurance business now.
Here in Wadsworth, right? And he has grandchildren who are in the insurance business.
That's right.
And we're going to get, we had Bill on the program. We're going to try to get his wife, Marley, on the
Okay.
program.
Now, she worked, when Mrs. Stone used to have the store, she worked part-time for Mr. Stoney when he was in high school there.
Right.
Molly did.
Her father was they were from Germany. She was
Right.
born in Germany. I have to sneeze, excuse me. Excuse me. Her father piloted the Zeppelins.
One of the airships.
Yeah, the airships.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to get her on the phone, on the program to talk about that.
I heard him give a program on that once at Rotary.
Oh, did you?
It was really good.
Well, of course, he's gone, but
Yes, oh, yeah.
Marty still remembers that. And then they have another daughter, too, who is married to Ott.
And then they have another daughter married to Fred Allen's son.
Right, that's right, exactly. So we have them, they're still around here. Then south of the Ben Franklin was a hardware store. And which one?
Well, that was Walter Dick's, wasn't it? First?
Walter Dick.
Yeah.
Dick's Hardware. And then, of course, there was another hardware store 2 doors down, which
Prince
was
and Coon.
Prince Geller and Coon, or Prince and Coon. Tell us a little bit about Walter Dick.
Well, you have to remember, most of these guys were gone, recently not in business, soon after I came to town. So I don't know that much about Walter Dick, really.
Well, he and his son were there.
Yeah.
Walter was an older man. As a matter of fact, he'd be about 125, 30 years old now, I suspect, would he not?
I would
Close
say
enough,
so.
yeah. And his son would be probably 80 or 90 years old, I don't know. They had a hardware store, long and narrow and not very well lighted and all that. And then we have the alley, and then we have the, not the alley, but the grocery store. Which grocery store was there at that time?
Well, Abrams when I came to town.
Abrams, well, it had been Abrams and Mansfield and became Abrams. Before that, it was Overholt and Freeborn.
I don't know that.
Yes, that was before that.
Was that Jack Overholt? Or?
Jack Overholt, yes.
I remember Jack. He was selling real estate when I
That's
came
right,
to town.
yes. Jack Overholt and Merle Freeborn.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Tell us a little bit about what you can remember about Abrams, Harold Abrams.
Oh, Harold, he was a great guy, outspoken guy, and very friendly, and spoke his piece because I probably knew him better from, he was on the Salvation Army board with me, and sometimes he liked to be a little controversial, you know. Really a great guy. And he had that store for quite a while. Then did Dale Holcomb buy it from him?
Dale Holcomb bought it from him.
Okay, fine.
Dale Holcomb, of course, has a huge family here in Wadsworth.
Oh, I bet.
Huge family here in Wadsworth. Ray Holcomb's still here in Wadsworth, and Dale is still in Wadsworth.
Yeah.
And their father was the developer of the Crestwood Avenue.
That's what I've heard. I didn't
Crestwood
know
Avenue,
that.
right now. Mhm. Then we went from there. We went to the B&B store.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Who was there? Well, Alan Hartzell was there, of course.
That's right, right.
Alan Hartzell was there.
Fred Allen.
Fred Allen Jr., right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
What was his father's name?
I don't know. See, he wasn't here when I came
Yeah.
to town.
We, somewhere along the line, I have forgotten father's name, but I thought it was Fred also, but I could be wrong.
I expect it was.
And Bob Gaston worked in there at that time, and who were some of the other people you remember in the store? Claude McClellan,
Car Dibble.
Clark Dibble,
You talking Alan Hartzell?
Alan,
Yeah.
Clark Dibble.
Car Dibble was there.
Car Dibble, and Claude McMullen,
Yeah.
and Grace Storm,
Oh, sure.
and Frances Sondels.
Yes.
Ruth Wieland. Well, that was her. Ruth Wieland was her maiden name. You know, just a great number of people there.
Right.
And who was at the B&B store when you came?
Well, there was one big guy, a big guy.
Yeah, the big guy.
Sam was the small guy.
Well, Sam, the big guy was Sam Ackerman's son-in-law.
I thought there was a connection.
Sam, his name was Sam also.
Were-
Sam Rubin.
Okay, they were there.
And then before that, Sam Ackerman's brother, Lou Ackerman, and his sister, Sadie Kahn, were there.
I don't know them.
Yeah, they were there. They opened the store in 1927. They had been down at the corner of Mill and Main Street, but then they moved up there in 1927 when the Wadsworth Post Office moved across the street. That's what the
Okay.
post office was there. And the safe that the Wadsworth Post Office was too big to get out of the door, so they sold it to the Ackermans for that.
Okay.
And then, of course, there was the house, and then there was Boehme's, which was a
Yeah.
grocery store. Was that there then? And who was there in the Boehme store?
Well, Buenos were there, but I can't come up with their names.
Well, Tony and his son, his
Wasn't
sister,
that Charles?
Charles also, and then they had a sister Josephine.
Right.
Right. Now, let's go across the street and see if we can get up a few more of these stores. And probably the very first store was the Western Auto Store, was it not? And who was in there at that time?
Don't know.
Ray Norton?
Oh, well, of course. Yes, I see Ray.
Remember Ray?
Yes.
Good person.
Yes, he is. I see
Ray
him
Norton
every
person.
once in a while.
And do you remember anybody else who worked in the Western Auto Store at the time?
No, I don't.
And how about the next store up?
Well, I'm not sure about the next.
Billiards, pool room.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there's there when I came to town.
Oh, it wasn't there at the time?
But there was a little restaurant in there.
Bob's Hamburger,
Okay.
Bob Semmelsberger.
But now, help me on this. Who had the hamburger, if we're getting out of territory, but just for history, who had the hamburger place down the corner of Garfield and Main?
That was,
Well, it doesn't matter.
oh no, it starts with an S. Everyone knows it.
Okay.
Stishers.
Okay, yeah.
Stishers, right.
Okay, go back to the other, no, I interrupted you.
No, it's all right.
Back to Bob's, yeah. it was-
Bob Hamburger. And then one of the persons who worked in there for a little while was Dale Hosfeld.
Don't remember him.
He was just out of the service or whatever, and he worked there. Then then we had Tubasings.
Right.
And we had Bob Tubasing on the program.
I
He
saw
was-
that in a paper. Didn't see the
He was
program.
very, very good. And we had Tubasings and his father and mother.
Yes. I think his father was on the school board here for years.
Oh, for years and years and years, right? Tubasing's there. And every woman in Wadsworth went into Tubasing's to
Right.
get the dry goods and things of that nature. Then right north of that was a drugstore again, G&H Drug. And that was Eddie Goldstein. Do you remember Eddie Goldstein?
Yes, I do.
And tell us a little bit about that family.
Well, Eddie, they lived on Woodland Avenue beside Mrs. Stonier. And I hadn't been in town very long when Eddie was killed in Pennsylvania in a car wreck.
Car accident.
And they had a very bright boy, had more than one boy. They had a very bright boy.
He was a physician in
And he was-
Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix,
Well,
Arizona.
but they had.
Scottsdale, Arizona.
Okay, but his name was Marvin?
Marvin.
But what was the older boy's name? He was killed in a,
He was killed also.
yeah,
Um,
he was older, very smart.
I can't think of it right this very second.
Yeah, but they had, I think they had a daughter too, also. They had a-
I didn't know the daughter. I knew
Yeah.
the wife. She was blonde.
Yeah. She was, I believe, originally from Canton. I think she moved back down there. Helen was her name, Helen Goldstein.
Helen Goldstein, right, yes.
And they had that store there.
You know, they had a drugstore. Eddie was a nice
Yes, he
person.
was.
Very nice, quiet, reserved, low-key. Marvin Goldstein is a physician. I'm almost sure it's Marvin.
Yeah, it's Marvin.
Yeah, is the physician in Scottsdale Hospital.
Yeah,
As
yeah, I
remember
think
the
he's
last-
maybe a cardiologist specialist or something.
That's right, yes, he is indeed. Then right next door, was Isley still there, or was it Wyrick's?
It was Isley's, but Harry was running it.
Harry Wyworth was running it.
Right. Remember those skyscraper ice cream cones you used to get?
Yes, for how much?
I don't know, 20 cents, I think.
15 cents.
15 cents. They had a flavor I never saw anyplace else, was grape ice cream.
They had the same thing in Berea.
Did they?
Only two places in the world I've ever seen grape ice cream that way was Wadsworth and Berea.
Right, okay.
And I can still remember when I was in college, and when I went by and I saw this grape ice cream. I had never had any anywhere else, and I went and got some. And it was. I still can taste it. It was very, very
Yeah,
good.
it was.
Very good. Tell us a little bit about Harry Wyworth.
Well, Harry was a tall guy, you know, and very nice guy. In fact, he became my neighbor on Marlowe Street. Not my next door neighbor, but my neighbor on Marlowe Street. A good man, a very friendly man,
And tell us about his children.
wanted to accommodate you. The only one I can remember, I think her name is Chris, And Chris liked horses real well.
really well, and she married a person as a result of the horses.
I don't know that.
She married a Nagy boy who was in the body shop business, and somewhere or another he repaired something of her car.
Okay.
And one time, I was going to a house on Marlowe Street. I don't think I was coming to your house, but I was coming to a house on Marlowe Street, and I walked up to the wrong door. I didn't know, I think I was next door to where I was supposed to be. And this girl answered the door, and she said, oh, well, come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. She didn't know me, and I didn't know her. And she said, my grandma's in the basement, or my mother's in the basement, or someone's in the basement. I think it was grandmother. And a couple of minutes later, up came this lady, and this woman just was shocked. Who's this man sitting here? And I introduced myself. Of course, I was fine. There was no problem, except that they were expecting somebody else.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And this girl thought that I was the somebody else.
Sure.
So we have never forgotten that. We have
Right.
never forgotten that. As a matter of fact, I was reminded about it just the other day. Well, I finally got that girl then, the girl who let me in, came to the University of Akron, and I worked with her there and so forth. And then I met her after she got married. So it's just been a wonderful, one of those jokes that just turned out well, but it could have been a very bad one. Tell us a little bit about Harry Wyworth's marble prowess.
I can't tell you about that. You'd have to get he or Richard Dickey or somebody to tell about that.
But he started something like
They
that.
had the
didn't
tournament there, I think, once a year.
Then let's go up to the next place where it's just Ladrick's, and tell us about Mr. and Mrs. Ladrick.
Ben Ladrick, yeah. He was a great shoe man, strictly business, and he owned a building there, of course.
Quiet.
Yes.
She was a sweet person.
That's right. And they had different people working there, a couple of men salesmen there, well, they had ladies too.
And they also had a very fine young woman, one of my favorite people, Susie Smith.
Yes.
Remember Susie?
I sure do.
She had a phenomenal sense of humor. I went in there one time, and I wanted to get a pair of shoes. And she looked at me, and whatever pair of shoes I wanted, obviously were not in style. She said, Caesar, since the flood, we've had some different kinds. But she can get away with that.
Yeah,
She can do anything. She was just a tremendous person, one of our favorite people.
Did she run a shoe store after? She didn't, did you?
I don't think so. She might have. She can do anything.
Can't think what happened to her.
She had a spot on Hartman Road, and she called it El Rancho Costa Mucho.
All right.
So that's her humor.
Yeah.
And then we go to
Mark Nielsen.
Pardon?
The Mark Nielsen.
Mark Nielsen's jewelry store.
Yeah.
And we talked about him. Then go around the corner and go to the, when you first came there probably, it was
Curtis.
Curtis Electric. And tell us about Bill Curtis and Dinah, and who Dinah was.
Dinah was she Bill Neath's, Joe Neath's
Joe's
sister?
sister,
yeah,
right.
Dinah Neath. There they run that business, and they had TVs and things which are still a little bit hard to get when I came to town from the war.
The first TV I ever saw in my lifetime was in their store window when I was in the 11th grade, and we were, during lunchtime, we were permitted to walk around, the town and so forth. And
Of course, that's when the high school was down where Central was.
Yeah, that's where, which is Central School right now.
Right.
And they had a still picture on television, and that was the first one I ever saw.
Yeah.
Right there.
That's right.
And then what was right next door?
Boy, I can't tell you offhand.
Well, they had, right now there's an insurance agency,
Yes.
but there was kind of an empty building. There was at one time an automobile agency and just a lot of other things.
I don't remember.
And then right behind them was Roy Moore's Tree Surgery.
Roy Moore.
Tell us about Roy Moore.
Well, Roy Moore, that was a tree surgeon, but he had a storage place or something over on Bender Court.
Bender Court, that's where he lived.
Okay, that's where he lived. Okay, and I used to see him, and he would tell me about the work he was doing. He had wheelbars out there, and he was a good handyman.
It's very, very good, very good.
Yeah.
He was skilled at almost anything.
Yes.
Good skater, ice skater, rollerblade skater, or roller.
I've heard that.
roller
That's
skater.
before I knew him, but
Tap dancer, did a lot of those things.
he was really, you might say, a not a character, but not derogatory.
No, 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 huh?
But he was kind of a character.
Kind of a character. We have come to the end of our hour, and we're going to close for now, but we still have 2/3 of the town yet to go. So we're going to have you come back again. But thank you once again for coming, and this has been one of those things that we want to be able to put on tape for posterity, and that is the personalities of the people in the stores. And there's no one who knows them better. You probably don't like this distinction, but you are probably the oldest living person who knew the city way back then as a storekeeper. I don't know if there's anyone else living. Is there anyone else living that you can think of right now who is as old as you and remembers that far back from some 45 years ago?
Not offhand.
Probably not.
Not with my accuracy. I still have very good memory for my age.
You have a very, very good memory for your age. Extremely good. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you the next time.
Thank you, Caesar.